Okay, last time we left off talking about different models of the purpose of business. Okay, and here I'm not talking about your individual purpose as a participant in business. I'm talking about the purpose of the business enterprise. Okay, and we looked at one model, the shareholder model by Milton Friedman. Okay, and if someone could look at your notes from the Zoom call, please, and tell us what does that model say the purpose of business is. So what should the aim of a business manager be on the shareholder model, the Milton Friedman model, vis-a-vis his role as a business person? A little louder? Make money. Precise, to speak precisely, it is to do as the shareholders desire. And for Friedman, that desire is almost always for money making. So the purpose of business is to make money in accordance with the wishes of the shareholders on the shareholder view. Okay, I concluded the Zoom call last time by talking a little bit about a second model of the purpose of business. The first model, the shareholder view, is held by about 50% of business ethicists or so. The second model is the stakeholder view. That's also held by about 50% or so. Okay, so let me talk now a little more thoroughly today about the stakeholder view of the aim of business. What is the purpose of business? Okay, think of this as the business pie on the stakeholder view. Businesses exist because when human beings divide tasks up and participate in teams, they can actually do more and be more efficient as workers than when they are generalists and try to do it all themselves. Okay, when each of us focuses on a particular responsibility and then we collaborate with others who are also doing the same, focusing on particular responsibilities, the collective pie, which I've drawn up here, becomes larger. Okay, and we can call this a profit pie. Becomes a bigger pie than if each of us were just generalists. And the stakeholder view says, look, there are different stakeholders, and these different stakeholders are all legitimately deserving of a piece of the pie. Okay, so the owners are definitely one of the stakeholders. Okay, the owners, the shareholders on Friedman's view, they are definitely a stakeholder on the stakeholder view. Okay, but there are other stakeholders as well on this view. The employees, for instance, are also deserving of a piece of the profit pie because, after all, they are the ones who do the day-to-day functional tasks to make the business enterprise operate. The customers are deserving of a piece of the pie because they provide the demand that brings that incentivizes the company to produce the product. Okay, the suppliers are also stakeholders because they provide the company or the business with the raw goods that the business can then bring to market in a finished form or work up in some other capacity to sell. Okay, the community is a stakeholder. The community educates the employees, gives them other various logistical forms of support so the company can then hire those employees and deploy them successfully to various tasks. And finally, the government is a stakeholder that is deserving of a piece of the profit pie on the stakeholder model because the government does a variety of different functions. It gives stability. It gives a legal framework within which the business can operate. It provides defense against threats. It provides infrastructure supports like roads for the trucks to bring the goods from one location to another and so forth. Okay, now on the stakeholder view, each of these different participants has a legitimate claim to the efficiency gains that are made by means of the business's existence. The efficiency gains are best thought of in terms of greater prosperity or greater profits or a profit pie. And each of these stakeholders has a morally legitimate claim to the profits in the profit pie on the stakeholder model. So the purpose of business for the stakeholder view ought to be to benefit the stakeholders. That should be the purpose of business. To bring about a better state of affairs for each of these different stakeholders, to benefit the stakeholders. Not to benefit just one stakeholder like the owners at the expense of the others, but rather to benefit all the stakeholders in a kind of an equitable way. Now, let me pause and ask if there are questions or comments before I share some criticisms of the view. Hope it makes sense.
I'm a little bit confused why a community would be a stakeholder in that.
Okay.
Because they don't, it seems like they don't put as much in as
Sure.
the rest of them do.
Sure. It might be helpful for us to think about it in terms of nearer and further stakeholders, or close and far, right? So these stakeholders do day-to-day operations, but these stakeholders are also important, even if a little bit removed from the day-to-day operations of the company, because without them, the company would not be able to function. Okay, so for instance, the community, I mentioned educate the workers, but there are a variety of other ways in which the community provides important logistical support to bring about the existence of the business. Think of it in these terms. The United States has some of the most successful, most powerful businesses in the world. I could run through the big five, for instance. Well, if you just think of it in terms of Microsoft or Google or Facebook or something like that. Apple, obviously. These kinds of businesses have not arisen in other parts of the world. They have arisen in the United States. They have not arisen in the developing world. They have not arisen in India. They have not arisen in China. They have arisen because, in large part, there's a certain community support, a certain amount of infrastructure or cultural support that helps their existence along. It helps their rise, so to speak. Maybe that helps a little bit. Okay, it's not as much, the community is certainly not a part of the day-to-day operations of the business, but it is an important stakeholder in the business, so goes this view at least. Okay, criticism. The big criticism is that the stakeholder view is too idealistic. So the idea here is this. The stakeholder view talks a good game, but it actually does not accurately reflect real-world business practices. In the real world, in businesses, what you get is a variety of different groups that don't necessarily cooperate, but that compete for the profit pie within companies. Okay, and some of these groups are winners and others are losers. Let's take an example. Let's use Walmart as an example. And if you think of it in terms of who's a winner and who's a loser monetarily inside of Walmart, that might make this a little bit more intelligible. Okay, so Walmart is a publicly traded company. So are the shareholders, have they made off well from the Walmart business model over the years? Yes, absolutely. Okay, Walmart has had a very successful business model for its shareholders, lots of capital appreciation in its shares, strong dividend stock, etc. What about the employees? It depends on who you are. If you're corporate at Walmart, you're one of the winners. If you're an ordinary retail employee at the ordinary stores, you get treated pretty badly. Okay, Walmart is notorious as one of the most exploitative employers in the United States. They regularly work their employees 29 hours a week so as not to pay them health. They regularly do a variety of other practices that are seen as sketchy. Now, they do employ people who are not employable elsewhere. Okay, so old people, people whose English is poor, people who've just gotten out of prison, people who can't get employed elsewhere do find work at Walmart. Okay, but if you have other options, you know that Walmart is not your best option if you're an ordinary retail level employee. Okay, customers, have they made off well from the Walmart business model? Very much so, yeah. Because Walmart sells at rock bottom prices, so they make off well financially. Walmart sells basically the same stuff as is sold at Target, but it's cheaper at Walmart. Okay, in fact, Target's entire business model seems to be built on people's, I guess, their uppityness, their like refusal to shop at Walmart. You know, I'm not a Walmart customer, so I buy the same thing at Target.
I understood why people shop at Target.
Oh, Walmart stores are a mess. I agree. Yeah.
When you go to Walmart, then it's just chaotic.
Yeah, it's like Walmart stores are like it's the shelves are messy and it's often dirty in the stores, and the people, like, you're around people and it's like, I know I'm supposed to love people, but sometimes it's hard, right? So maybe that's why people go to Target. They're willing to pay more for a different shopping experience. Okay. Suppliers, Walmart is notorious for using its very large market power to negotiate in hardball style tactics with suppliers. We'll actually read about this in the Business Ethics in Action book later this semester. Those suppliers, often from the developing world, often from China, don't have much of a choice when it comes to dealing with Walmart. You either sell to Walmart, supply Walmart, or you don't have a business. Okay, and usually Walmart provides them with very little. Okay, so the suppliers actually don't make off very well. Community has made off pretty well. Walmart has been pretty supportive. They're very, very supportive of various community projects in Bentonville, their hometown in Arkansas. Very supportive more generally of Arkansas community engagement. They have been politically active over the years. They are a right-wing company. They support conservative political causes. They're very anti-union. So whenever there's a political situation that involves some sort of union involvement, you can find Walmart on the opposite side of the spectrum. When Walmart employees have tried to form unions, Walmart fires them because they're very anti-union. Okay, government. Walmart's actually pretty well behaved in terms of paying taxes. As far as a big company goes, Walmart pays more taxes than most, so they're pretty good there. Okay, let's use one more example. The point of that illustration was to suggest that actually there's an intra-Walmart struggle over the profits, and some are winners and others are losers. Let's look at Apple. Okay, Apple shareholders, have they made off well from the Apple business model? Absolutely, yeah, very much so. Okay, capital appreciation has been extraordinary over the years. Apple's a great dividend stock. It's been great. Okay, employees, have they made off well? Yeah, very much so, if they're American. Okay. So Apple corporate employees and Apple retail level employees get great pay for what they do. Okay, if you work at the mall, you get a great set of benefits as a package. You get all sorts of wonderful goodies. Okay, Apple's Chinese affiliates, not well treated at all. It is because they can. Apple can. That's why. So Apple's Chinese affiliates are actually not officially Apple employees. They work for affiliates that are suppliers, like Foxconn is a well-known Apple supplier. Apple does this because there are labor standards that they have to abide by as an American company, even when in their treatment of workers overseas. And they have dirty business that they want to get done. That dirty business improves their profits, so they have another company do their dirty business, so they don't have to do it themselves. For sure. Okay, customers, have they made off well?
So.
Maybe, maybe not. In terms of profits, almost certainly not. In terms of quality of goods, very much so. Okay, because Apple products are very good quality. But you pay about 40% more for the same amount of computing power for most Apple products, iPhones, there are various iWatches, things like that, than you could elsewhere.
They tend to last longer.
They last longer, so the quality is very good.
I've really noticed that.
Yeah, people pay through the nose and they do last longer.
I can never afford, because I have to pay, that's how I've always been. I've always had to pay for my phone. Ever since I was a kid, my parents said they would never buy me a
Right.
plan. I've had to buy do everything for my phone.
Right.
So I could never afford an iPhone. So I've always gotten Android or something like that because it has good quality, decent quality for a cheap price.
Sure.
But then the problem is it breaks quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one thing that I recently realized. Yeah, Apple is expensive, but it also comes with quality.
The quality is very high. It's actually hurt them. The quality's actually hurt them. So you guys want to see an antique? This is a 4S. It's like, ooh. Yeah, this is my phone. It's a 4S. It still works. It still works. I've never upgraded. It does everything I want. I only want calls and text, but I could actually still surf the web on this. Apple's quality is actually a problem that they have had to cope with. Does she really?
Yeah. So Apple's problem is they need people to constantly upgrade because their revenue model doesn't work if people just do what I do, which is, I've had this phone for over 10 years.
I thought they came out with like, before it like shut it down after a couple of years.
Well, so that's why they have updates to slow the phones down to force people to upgrade. But I always reject the updates. I never like accept an update. So my phone still works fine. Okay. Suppliers have not made off especially well. Community, very much so. Apple gives a lot to community in California. It was not always the case. Steve Jobs famously never gave a penny to charity. However, under Tim Cook, they have given a lot more to community causes. They are very left-wing in their political views. They give to a lot of left-wing causes. They also do a lot more general community involvement, though, such as support for affordable housing in California, which, boy, they do need in California.
So you said they're suppliers. What did you say about the suppliers?
The suppliers, the employees at the suppliers do not make off well, but the supplier management make off well. Apple gives them good deals. So the Foxconn management, for instance, make off very well. Yeah, so it depends on who you are at the suppliers. Government doesn't make off well. Apple is a notorious tax avoider. They're officially an Irish company domiciled in the Caymans, which is a tax shell to enable them to pay as little as possible. Okay. Now, it is legal what Apple does. Maybe it's an indication that the tax code needs to be changed so as to eliminate those kinds of loopholes. But Apple is notorious for trying to pay as few taxes as possible. Okay. The point of this exercise was to suggest that when it comes down to real-world business, there aren't equitable distributions of profits among all the stakeholders in the business in a fair and equal way. Rather, there are intra-business struggles that pit different stakeholders against each other, and some end up winners and others end up losers. So this model is actually not accurate to real-world business conditions.
It's not dispensed equally.
Yeah, profits aren't dispensed equally. Yeah, it's actually in real-world business enterprises, some groups within companies make a larger percentage proportionally than others. And to say that the purpose of business is or ought to be to equitably distribute to all of the stakeholders is to offer a nice idealistic view that actually doesn't accurately map onto the real world. For sure. Okay, questions or comments about the stakeholder review? Let me offer you guys a quick case study.